Does anybody actually think about hidden object games? It's a game genre that tends to be met with laughter and derision because it's one of the most linear experiences that you could have in gaming. And it doesn't help that whenever someone mentions a hidden object game, it's always going to be something like Coronation Street and the Mystery of the Missing Hot Pot recipe. I'm not going to be playing through that, however, because outside of the name it has nothing notable going for it whatsoever. But hidden object games do hit a certain crowd, and like most of my viewers, you don't really pay attention to them because you think to yourself, well, isn't that just the game where you click on things and find them and that's the game, the end? Well, yeah, that's what I thought too, until I heard about Deja Vu. It also helps that this game came out about 2 months ago and has had basically no coverage whatsoever. And, for full disclosure, I paid for my copy out of my own wallet, so these are my opinions fueled by the entry fee. You want to know why this game is special? Well, the premise is stupid and the game rolls with it. You play as some pillock waiting for his Russian girlfriend to fly over to him in London or wherever the hell he lives, but she never arrived. So, in his infinite wisdom, he decided that the best course of action would be to go and fly to the fictional city of Zlopotrach, Russia, and look for his girlfriend himself. The kind of sweeping generalism that all hidden object games are the same was a paper-thin argument anyway, and Deja Vu's story starts off with a bang on how absolutely ridiculous it can get, both the argument and the game. First off, I really wanted to say that our protagonist fell for the classic Eastern European male bride scam, because, I'm pretty sure that his girlfriend is some 50-year-old man living in some bumfuck town, living it up like a Saudi prince because he gets $4,000 a year, which is equivalent to half the town's GDP. But, you know what? Maybe it's all true. Maybe he has a girlfriend. Well then, maybe check your damn phone, do some calling first. Maybe she missed her flight. Maybe her flight was delayed. You can't just decide to uproot your life because you want to see your girlfriend. What about your job? Most companies aren't the kind that would agree to their employees suddenly disappearing to find their mythical significant other. It's likely that they would have been fired before their plane even landed. Plus, what about a visa? Russia's pretty restrictive with who they let in, and playing international private investigator is typically a good way to get detained in any country. Our hero is probably one of the sharpest bulbs in the shed, and there's no way he's not going to end up in at least some kind of trouble. So, Deja Vu plays like every other hidden object game in existence. You have a list, and you click on things to find them. I do like that there's a little bit of additional interactivity here as puzzles, but there just isn't enough of it. I mostly click all over the place because I'm an impatient bastard, but at least it's not always find the object, but manipulate the object. I will say that this game has the feeling of old adventure games in the good kind of way. It's just that instead of trying to figure out obscure horseshit like a bunch of other games at the time, which I will say is fun depending on the game, you just have to click on a bunch of items. And thankfully, even that isn't ruined by pixel hunts where you need to find whatever. This is Coronation Street. Honestly, this game just reminds me that most adventure game formulas just went into being hidden object games. It's a real shame that the vast majority of them aren't as in-depth or as long as old adventure games used to be, but if you can get past the fact that you have to periodically click on things, not as a part of actually exploring the world you're in, yeah, you'll have a good time. Deja Vu is a bit too short and easy for my liking, but can't win them all, and besides, better too easy than too hard. I wish it replaced a FA first-person perspective in the overworld to a LucasArts-style point-and-click adventure game where you could just introduce world interaction as well as digging through piles of garbage, but I guess that's just a classic gamer in me asking too much from the world. You also pick up Matryoshka dolls periodically, and after you beat the game, they're shown off in a nice little side room. I did forget about them halfway through, so I missed a lot, but you know what, this was a nice little extra thing to do. They're blended well in the background, and at no point did I feel that they were unfair. But let's talk about the plot. The game starts off with you needing to get ready to go to Russia, but to do that, you need to print a flight ticket and put some items into your bag. Well, it's all basically find some stuff, use one of the things that you found in your quest, repeat, and then you get your PC running, which has the GUI scaling set to legally blind elderly mode, and read an email with realistically broken English. Maybe his computer was what the developers thought people would be playing this on, as I can't imagine any other good reason why they felt like they had to make the game in a 4:3 aspect ratio. Once again, this game came out in June of 2020. Most people have stopped using 1024x768 as a resolution. But then again, this guy's got like $1,000 worth of tech gear and a monitor he picked out of the trash, which makes me unsure as to whether he's a brilliant mastermind that's thinking steps ahead of me, or if I'm the mastermind for wanting to have a computer that would be able to do more than read a text email and print a JPEG. But we get our printer running, we print our ticket, and fly to Russia. And as soon as you land, there's instantly a guy offering to rent us this car for 1,000 rubles. That car is probably stolen because 1,000 rubles isn't even $20 Canadian, and he's not offering to be a taxi driver. You get to borrow this guy's car. Oh, and the voice acting in this entire game? Yeah, it can just all go to hell.
I can rent you a car for just 1,000 rubles.
Yeah, that's a real believable accent you've got there. Not a single person in this game speaks Russian with a Russian accent, and it feels like a fever dream because if there's one word that describes the average Russian guy wearing a bootleg Adidas sweater offering to sell you a stolen car for $20, it sure isn't bilingual. Should probably mention that the entire game's writing is... well, it was made by AlikArt Studio, and they tried. It's not that the game is mistranslated beyond belief, but it just sounds wrong to have perfectly native English speakers read out dialogue that's just slightly off grammar-wise instead of hiring someone from Ukraine to read it. You'd have a more realistic accent, and you could justify having errors in your text this way, just so long as the hero has his American accent or wherever the hell he's from in his texts without any mistakes, you're good. I do some more clicking, look at Soviet-era propaganda, and dig around the trash to find scraps of paper scattered around that just so happen to be a very vague-looking map of the entire area. After a quick game where I systematically remove people that the game deems undesirable, I speak to a southern gentleman who offers to act as a currency broker because that's what legitimate businessmen do. I give him $20, which is somehow a thick stack of money, and then give most of that to the Gopnik standing by the Volga GAZ-24, who tells us that the wheel is flat and runs off.
Sorry, bro, but there is one flat wheel. Had no time to replace it.
Up to me to change the wheel, I guess. This is one of the most useful life skills you can have if you're a car owner. Ending up with a flat shouldn't stop you from getting to your destination, it should just delay you a little bit. I don't care who you are, learn to change a bloody tire. I should mention that both of these things actually do happen in Russia, as in the shady businessman, although I'd prefer to exchange dollars at an actual business instead. They typically do have worse exchange rates, but they're more trustworthy and carry more currency than some random guy does. And don't deal with a guy lending you his car. It's a huge risk because he could always mark it as stolen to the police, especially if you don't fill out the paperwork for this. No, this is an actual thing that happens. I'm not joking. Don't get involved. But in the meantime, we go and do some more puzzles, find a phone number for a private detective to do the actual bullshit work that you really have no real right doing, and...
Good afternoon. I am Ivan Stepanovich Zubov, private detective.
God, I hate this voice acting. Once again, it's serviceable voice acting, nothing up against the guy that read out this line, but no Russian would ever pronounce Ivan Stepanovich Zubov like that. Anyway, it turns out your Russian girlfriend is both real and missing, and then you try to deal with that for the rest of the game. I don't mean like it's a game where you simulate crying in a fetal position, you actually go outside and make a real effort to look for her. You end up repairing gas stations, fishing for trash inside a manhole, genuinely swearing at the fact that someone stole your wheels, literally, take the tram like the loser that you are. This game just has a huge amount of atmosphere. You know how there are some games that cause actual problems in your life where you just want to play the game some more instead of doing whatever chores you need to do? Yeah, well, this game didn't do any of that, but it got me invested in seeing how my idiot finds his girlfriend. And for a hidden object game, that's an accomplishment. While I think the graphics have a lot of room for improvement, some of the scenes are beautiful in a way that only Eastern European games are. I mean, outside of the hidden object parts, but the entire world is gritty and dark, and if you use a little bit of imagination, it does evoke the sense of a city struggling in a post-Soviet environment. Except it's been 30 years since the USSR fell, kinda time to have gotten your shit together. Anyway, this isn't even remotely a big budget game. This is the kind of game that you don't even see on consoles. But the game had a goal with the art style, and I'd like to think that it accomplished it. The music itself is also extremely fitting, but I don't know how some of the songs feel like I'm trying to drill through my eardrums. There's only like 8 tracks in the game for a total runtime of 14 minutes, so not enough of it, but at the same time I wouldn't mind getting rid of a few songs solely for their performance. Roman, you did a great job creating the music. I love the fact that they have dynamic range, but there's a reason I didn't choose all of the tracks in the background music of this video, and that's because I love the viewer more than you loved me. So, at this point, you need to put up posters hoping someone in town knows your girlfriend. There's a printer that you can talk to have your poster made, and after handing over your girlfriend's picture, which seems to be missing a hand, you need to find the actual printer or maintenance guy or whoever to actually do his job. You also need a brush and glue to put up the poster, so you chop off the screwdriver and buy the brush. And you end up finding the guy sitting in the yard, but he doesn't want to do anything because he's on lunch break and he'd rather play dominoes instead. Man, you know what, I know that feel. Lunchtime's over, but the building has had a power outage, and he needs you to make the part for the printing press that broke. Hold on, what? If the power broke down, doesn't that mean you kind of need to take a late lunch because fixing the power half an hour earlier is kind of more important considering the entire business is stopped? On top of that, why am I the idiot that has to go manufacture a printing press part? I don't know how this works. I have instructions on how to light a fire and toys that I throw in as a material I'm gonna use, but this part's gonna break in a week, and this guy's gonna know that it's because he didn't bother making it himself. Or, ordering a replacement for a manufacturer. You get what you pay for, and you didn't pay for shit. So, you put your posters up and get info from Zubov that he's found a lead. He found her father who works at a mine nearby. You have access, but security won't let you through because nobody bothered to tell him. He has a phone, but it doesn't work. Heading over to the electrical box shows me that it's broken. Wait, but then how does he have light in the room? Judging by the fact that you have to change the symbols here shows that the power is misdirected all over the place, this just seems like a fire hazard waiting to go off. Better hope that the MCS doesn't discover this. After playing a short minigame about occupational safety and health where you put on a tutu to go into the mines, you take the elevator and find your girlfriend's dad. Nah, just kidding, he's just a co-worker. But he asks you to check the gas meter to make sure that it's still safe to work there, and you end up finding her ad instead. But turns out that there's too much gas, and you casually click back right before the mine caves in and a rock hits you on the head. You get carried out and sent to the hospital where your diagnosis is walk it off. Also, is it just me or did the game draw 3 hands on my protagonist here? Anyway, you go back to the hotel where you realize that you're way in over your head here, get some self-respect and decide to fuck it off back home. Your girlfriend isn't coming back, going here was a crazy idea, and this is the smartest thing he's done so far. But, right before you leave, you get a phone call from your girlfriend's friend that gave you her address in a village nearby. Might as well check it out, give it one last shot before flying off and acknowledging that this was a mistake. You ring the bell, her cousin comes out and lets you in. Turns out that your girlfriend is actually both real and confirmed that you're her BF, so my guess that this was an elaborate catfish is probably dead in the water. Or maybe her cousin is a catfish. We'll never know. Well, turns out she's been missing for a month, so you go up to her room only to find it locked. Her cousin doesn't have spare keys, but he tells you to look in the truck where they're in the ignition. Wait, hold on. So she's been missing for a month. Does that mean that they haven't been talking at all during that time? And on top of that, how has nobody stolen this car yet? The door's unlocked, the keys are in the ignition. This is a world where leaving your car for a few hours left it without wheels and where you need to fix gas stations to get fuel. There's no way this car would be standing here like this, out in the open. So you do the sensible thing, grab your keys and go inside to find a pretty cozy place to live. But what's this? A crazy wall? Oh, she was investigating something, which probably means that she's a reporter. And since this appears to be related to a business, or more specifically the mines... Uh-oh. I spent some time looking at this, and it's clear that the mine wasn't doing too well, so the shareholder or CEO or whoever had the pressure gauges modified to show 3% less than it really was. And if anything over 2% was dangerous, and really, the gas was triple the maximum accepted limit. This caused more deaths, but it also caused several times more exports, so if you just pretend that deaths aren't just an unfortunate circumstance of the job and don't pay out, you're bringing in lots of cash. And when you bring in lots of cash, you bring attention to the oligarchy that want to get involved, anything else be damned. But this is pretty solid evidence that uncovers this conspiracy. And oligarchs don't like it when people uncover their conspiracies. Yeah, dude, your girlfriend is dead. Her corpse is probably in the woods somewhere where no one can find her, and you're getting involved in shit that you shouldn't deal with. I would tell you what happens, but then I'm gonna spoil the ending, and at this point, you should really try it for yourself. But before you do, let me just say that the ending sucks. Like, flat out. I didn't even realize what had happened until a few seconds afterwards, and I was genuinely upset. It was going really well, too. It was picking up traction when you reached the whole conspiracy thing, but that ending made me doubt if I was being too generous with my portrayal of the game so far. It wrote itself into a corner where almost every ending was a very nice option to go with, and somehow thought so far out of the box that it's probably one of the least satisfying endings to any game I've played. The only thing I'll mention about the ending is that, no, you don't find your girlfriend. You fail. Just pretend that you crossed this river and you tripped on a rock and drowned in the shore here. It's more satisfying than the real ending. And that was Deja Vu. It's a hidden object game that really felt more like they wanted to make an adventure game, hence why it had a really good plot, and I kinda wish it had less hidden object finding in it, but it didn't hurt my enjoyment of the game any. Well, good plot with an asterisk. It's not gonna make me play more hidden object games in my life, but it was a good ride until the end. Kinda like a mystery that built everything up really nicely only to slip on a wet floor and tumble down some stairs at the end. Okay, final score. Russian Curveball. I'm not sure how many times I expected something else when I played through Deja Vu, from the premise to the execution, and despite its problems, I found it pretty enjoyable, and that's because it's clear that the development team cared, and that was enough to make me want to care. After all that, I feel like the only way that this could have been a better game is to have made it longer, made an actual mystery with a payoff where you probably piss off an oligarch somewhere, end up talking about the freedom of the press in a country like Russia, but maybe this would have been too deep for a casual game. I don't know, I just wanted more of it. Anyway, the lesson here is, don't get involved with relationships with someone in Eastern Europe that you haven't actually met. It's probably Zubov trying to scam you on the other end of that screen. Hey, so after beating the game, you end up getting a handful of mini games that you can play based off old Soviet arcade machines. Alright, so here's my review of them. For starters, they're all terrible.